Well, I'm Hartwell of Royal Codes, and this is Elle Watson of...
Watson.
What did I say?
Watson.
It's Watson?
No, Watson.
That's what I was saying.
Watson.
Watson.
Okay.
Am I saying it weird?
Okay.
This is Elle Watson, W-A-T-S-O-N.
S-O-N.
Oh my gosh. And this is an unlocking of the codes where we're gonna have some beautiful conversations about being a woman and also the challenges of being a woman and also an expression of our own divine feminine and our journey with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to say off the bat?
No, go ahead. I'm excited.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions as a guidepost so we don't feminine swirl too hard. First question, what lights you up about being a woman?
Oh my God. What lights me up about being a woman? Well, I mean, for me, I think that women have the capacity to be multidimensional and multifaceted. A lot of women like to box themselves into an archetype of just being feminine or just being this particular way, the mother or the housewife or something like that. But as women, we have the capacity as creators to be able to create life, to create businesses, projects, impact the world. And so that's really what lights me up about being a woman, is the fact that we have the capacity to be so multifaceted.
So multidimensional.
Yeah.
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 I was even thinking it's interesting, this is like, I don't know, maybe controversial, but I realized that there's this unlocking of this illumination of the goddess embodiment through women and also this priestess coding.
Yeah.
And then I was just thinking in terms of also like the masculine, I don't know a term or something that's like awakening and enlivening, which is the same type of archetype. You know what I'm saying?
No, but there is.
What is it?
It's the divine masculine.
But is there another term for, I guess, like God, right?
Well, I mean, that's really subjective because God is both feminine and masculine energy, the polarity and the duality. So when it comes to the divine masculine, there is an awakening happening within the divine masculine right now as well. Last year, it was predominantly about the women and them going through their own healing, their own shadow work, and the unraveling of everything that's holding them back in order to embody their true essence in a state of balance and truth. And that is very true for what's happening like across the globe at the moment for the men. Yeah.
I've noticed that what it feels like for the masculine that's opening the most is just the heart. Almost like awakening and men accessing parts of their ability to feel and sense and intuit even more.
Totally.
Which is really beautiful.
No, for sure. And that's the other thing as well. It's like we both have divine masculine and feminine within, and that sacred union doesn't have to be manifested in a relationship in a physical form. It's about the union, the sacred marriage within yourself. And so what I'm finding right now, just, witnessing what's happening around the world is that men are dropping this alpha male sort of, warrior man, have to be like the macho guy, and softening into their hearts and tending to their heart in order to be able to receive more. You know what I mean? To receive more love and to give more love and to be able to hold a greater capacity for the feminine. And that can only happen when a man has fully healed his heart. And the same goes for women as well.
You had mentioned at a different time that you have been through quite a journey to embody your femininity.
Yeah.
And it's something that I resonate with. Like for me personally, I used to love identifying with more of my masculine traits than my feminine traits. In fact, I just felt like, like I wanted to be stronger. I wanted to be like intelligent. There's just like this this need to prove myself that I was equal to men, or I could stand up. I would even arm wrestle boys in elementary school because I wanted to show I was strong enough and to be seen by them as an equal. And I'm curious your journey with masculinity versus femininity, because I know now you and I both agree to be balanced to me is to be more like a holistic I don't know, more like stable woman for me personally. But
Yeah.
I'm curious your journey with your masculinity versus where you are now.
Well, I mean, I might need a few hours for that.
Okay. Cliff notes.
But I'll keep it light. So, yeah, I guess no matter whether you're a woman or a man, you're going to go through social conditioning. No doubt there's going to be a whole bunch of trauma that you experience in your life. And if not, then you're a very lucky person. But still, there's going to be inherent things that you go through in your life that shape the person that you are. And for me, whilst it might not look like it on the outside, I had a very difficult upbringing. And I had to learn how to be strong and resilient in order to protect myself. So growing up as an adolescent woman into a woman, it was a learned behavior to be in my masculine, to be strong, to be super independent, hyper independent, to the point that it was almost like a bit dysfunctional, that I didn't need anyone, anything. And so I learned to be in my masculine because that's all I knew how to be. I didn't know how to be in my receptivity, in my softness, that because that little girl inside me was so afraid of having her heart shut down or not being loved or not feeling loved, that I had walls up, and it was easier to be strong.
Safer.
Easier to be strong. And so when I look back now, I'm like, okay, I'm so glad that I was like that, because, you know, I have a force and I'm really, really strong and resilient, and it's given me the capacity that I do now in order to express that strength in terms of how I do everything from a business perspective. But at the same time, the amount of healing that it took for me to soften into my femininity, it wasn't an easy journey. I had to heal my inner child. I had to heal my heart. I had to go through womb healing. I really had to learn how to love myself and to give myself compassion. And that can show up in you know, many different forms along the healing journey and spiritual awakening. But to fully embody that essence was, yeah, really, really difficult for me. But now I'm doing this dance where it's like I feel like I've reached this place of contentment and grace in my life, where I've fully embodied the masculine and feminine within, that I can dance between those energies in order to, you know, to create, to build, to fly, to expand, to inspire, and it feels really incredible. Yeah, but it took me like 37 years to get there.
100%.
Yeah.
Ooh, I have one question that I want to like lock in. There was one thing that I would love to hear, is just to set you up also for the women that don't know what you do or what you're about, like Cliff Notes, because what you do with water and one thing that really resonated with me is your story with your prayer to the water and what you are doing to support so much in the planet.
Yeah.
I'd love to know. I'd love to share that to the camera a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, so, you know,
And also what you did before, your mastery. I think that's really cool.
my what?
Your business mastery.
Oh, right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a big question.
I know it's a big question. All we have are big questions.
It's a really big question. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur by nature. My background was in corporate up until the age of like 24, and then I started my first company. Previous to that, it was like advertising, marketing, and strategy, and my first company was a marketing agency. So I've basically built companies from the age of 24, and I've never worked for another person ever since. Now I'm nearly 37, and I've been on quite a journey, from working in investment firms to running global deals, building, you know, international projects, and everything that I've gone through in my life has given me a really unique skill set that's applied to now business, the strength, the resilience, that warrioress within me. And there was a period of my life where I finished filming Byron Bays, actually. And it was during COVID, end of 2021. Reality show on Netflix.
Yeah.
Disaster. But it was during COVID, so I thought, why not? Why not just go and do something fun for a moment? The whole world's on lockdown. Why not just film a TV show in your favorite place in Byron Bay? Well, okay, cool. So that was an experience. But then when the whole world started to open up, I flew overseas and I started to bring together all of my experience across finance and, working on deals and capital raising and that sort of thing. And I went to the Amazon, actually, and I drank ayahuasca. And that completely sent my life on a whole new trajectory. Because I started to learn the ways of the indigenous and making offerings and prayers to, the water, working with the elements like the fire and the air in order to live in sync with spirit, which is a different way than being like a matrix grinder, which people in the rat race in the corporate world, they're all matrix grinders, like love, but that's not really living in life with spirit and your soul's path. And so what happened there was I sung a Native American water chant and I made an offering to this waterfall in a place called Alto Paradiso in Brazil. And I just came out of the Amazon. And I had this transmission from the water that I was to clean the 8 arteries of the planet. And the arteries are the main river systems, the major river systems, and they're all polluted with plastic. So because of a couple of other ventures that I was building at the time, I was connected to the Queen of Congo, and I gave her a call, right? And so she's been initiated as a high priestess of the water in Africa, which is a huge responsibility. So I said, hey, I was like just down by the river and made an offering to the water, and I heard this whole voice like, you need to clean the arteries of the planet. And I'm like, whoa, okay. What do I do with this information? Who do I call?
Yeah, so then you called the High Priestess of Congo.
Yeah, the Queen of Congo.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, my dear, that's just your manja. And I'm like, okay, so the spirit of the water has a name? And she's like, yeah, it's Yumanja, or in Africa it's Oshun. So I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, well, I'm wanting to clean the Great Congo River, which is the second largest river in the world. It's incredibly polluted. There's 41 million people in Africa that don't have clean drinking water. And all they're doing is drinking water out of plastic bottles. Yet we have the second largest river in the world, and there's not enough drinking water for, the Congolese. So I built this entire project in Congo, which effectively was a nation-building project to bring privatized money to fulfill a role of a government that isn't serving their people, right? And so I built a blueprint for that country to clean the river, protect the basin, provide clean drinking water to the local communities and to work with the indigenous. And then once I finished that blueprint, I took that blueprint to Indonesia, to Bali. Because there's so many different countries around the world that are facing similar problems, like lack of infrastructure, inadequate governments, and so on. And so I thought, how can I create the most amount of impact in the world? What can I do to scale? And so I built a project that can be translated to any country in the world. So these have been my 2 core projects over the last 4 years. And right now in Bali, where it's a large infrastructure project, but we've also got like a way to help the community as well. So pretty much it's like, okay, how do you solve all of this plastic pollution? You have to build industrial systems because of the volume of plastic pollution.
It's like, what do you do with it?
So we've got a system to turn it into advanced bio oil.
Wow.
So we're rolling that out, but then also at the same time, what we're doing is, everything that I do, I need to regenerate. I need to be living in reciprocity, because the energy of Mother Earth is all about giving and receiving, and that continual cycle of life, like how a seed turns into a tree, then it turns into a fruit or a flower, then it drops and it turns into again. So if you apply that same reciprocity to business, how can we take care of the people that are currently living on the landfills? So I went to the largest landfill in Bali. I went to the biggest landfill.
Do you have any photos of this?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
And there's 600 people living there. Women and children in generational poverty. So say, for example, you're living on the dump. You have a child, you're living in a favela, and you earn income based off your picking plastic out of the trash and selling it to the mafia. That's what's happening here in Bali. And And so what we're doing at One Bali, which is the name of the project, is we're finding ways that we can actually give them stable wages and build housing to lift them out of poverty. Because there's a woman, actually, her name's Ressa. She was born as a waste picker. So you're born into it, you know, it's really intense. And that happens, there's like 6 major landfills all throughout Bali. And what we want to do is give back to the community to make sure that these people are taken care of.
Yeah.
And also to support local fishermen who, you know, they're collecting plastic out of the ocean like every day, and all these beach cleanups that are happening. So we want to give them a fair wage and take care of them and just make sure that we, you know, scale as much as we possibly can. But they're my 2 main projects. And of course, you know, there's many other things that I do in agriculture in Uganda. We've got huge coffee plantations where we're taking care of 30,000 local freehold farmers.
Wow.
To grow coffee. And it's crazy because in Uganda they don't even drink coffee, they're tea drinkers. So if you can imagine, the coffee that you're drinking today comes from Uganda, which is grown by a farmer that is not even drinking the coffee, right? But it's like, how can we take care of those people at a grassroots level? So I have the capacity to build major projects across infrastructure, project management, and then give back to the people and the environment, and that's what I'm about.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Sorry, I was talking for a really long time.
No, that's okay.
I mean, yeah.
That's okay. I think it's really, really profound. Yeah. One, we, for our exotic collection, we're offering and donating money to trash cleanup.
Yeah.
But we've also considered going and cleaning up trash. But I've always wondered, where does the trash go? So basically what you're saying is you're building an infrastructure that can turn the trash into biofuel. Wow.
Yeah. So basically, the issue that we have in Bali is that there's so many beach cleanups, and I even had to check myself because, like, I'll on a Saturday or a Sunday, I'll go to the beach and I'll collect whatever plastic because I need to live and walk the talk. You know, I can't just be building a plastics recycling project and not doing anything about it just myself. I don't need to be on Instagram showing that I'm picking up this plastic or that plastic, but a lot of people are doing that. But there's nothing to do with it. And so the most complicated thing about Bali right now is that waste is a commodity. So the waste is managed by the mafia here. Serious. That's the whole thing. And there's these impoverished waste scavengers that sell the waste to Jakarta, right? Or to Surabaya. And they're just making money off it. So there's no proper recycling systems here. You know what I mean? They've only just introduced sorting bins, organic plastic, you know, mixed waste. So if you were just to do a beach cleanup right now, you'd probably go and drop it off at a collection point, but you'd just be making money for the plastic mafia. Is the reality of what's happening right now.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, so obviously we were working to combat that. Yeah.
Profound.
Yeah. But all of that came from a prayer as well.
Right, the prayer to the water.
Yes.
Yes.
So obviously, if you just like circle back, I made the prayer in Brazil. Okay. And then started building Congo. And then I arrived in Bali 3.5 years later. And I asked a local to take me to a temple because I asked permission to be in Bali.
Same.
I asked permission. I'm like, okay, ancestors of this land, do I have permission to be here? And if so, tell me what I need to do in order to be here. How can I serve you? And so I learned the Hindu way to pray here, which was super profound, and I really feel connected to that religion, even though I don't identify with religion, but it was like, yeah, a very profound moment. And the next day I woke up to the smell of burning plastic, and I never smelt that before because obviously as Westerners, you know, we've lived in LA, Australia, all these different places around the world, and they have waste recycling infrastructure. And then this burning plastic smell. And so what was happening was spirit was telling me, you need to do this. So I called my technology provider like the next day with this 40-meter vessel that was in the waters of Indonesia, about to arrive into Bali, with this whole roadshow of how to recycle plastic in Indonesia, and it just all kick-started from there. This is in May last year.
Wow.
So it's like the spirit of Bali really called for this.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah, not without challenges, but
Yeah.
I've got an amazing team, and I feel really confident that we're going to do something incredible here.
What's really relatable, and I know I've talked to a lot of people in general that were in a different type, you were calling it matrix, what'd you call it?
Matrix grinders.
Matrix grinders. But you're just, like the focus is money, success, building, competition. And sometimes there's certain things that kind of just like shift the perspective where then you start thinking differently. You start caring about the land more, people. And what I also just resonate with Hindu is there's so much sacredness to the value of life and life force, and not just a God that's separate, but actually just like honoring everything. And that's one thing that I really truly love about Bali, and I appreciate what you're doing because I care so much about Bali maintaining its beauty and its life force and its feminine magic. And one of my favorite things about Bali is it feels like there's so much feminine charge here.
Yeah.
That in a lot of my life, of all the places I've lived, this was the one place that I feel like it just electrified my creative juices.
Totally.
And also my femininity. I feel so safe here, which I'm so grateful for. Oh, thing was falling. Okay, I do have a question for you. Okay. So that was a turning point, the prayer. For kind of the trajectory of what you're doing with your life and your purpose. And I'm curious, was there a moment in your life that you realized you were denying your feminine energy? It was like a single moment you're like, wow, I'm not allowing myself to be feminine.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a vulnerable one, actually.
Okay.
It's vulnerable because when it comes to femininity, it's the same for men, but a big part of that for women is about being in your body, being connected to your womb, to your heart. And after one of my first medicine journeys, okay, this is a really deep share, but I'm just going to go for it.
Okay.
I never wanted to be a mother my whole life. And society says, you're a woman, get married, have children, etc., etc. That's sort of like generational story. That was never me. I was always the rebel, the nonconformist that wanted to build, to create. Like, I wasn't the black sheep of the family, but I was born very different. Like, I'm built different, and that's okay. But I really had to inquire deeply, why don't I want to have children? What is that? It comes from somewhere. All of our thinking, our belief systems, our character is deep within our social conditioning. And so when I asked myself that in a medicine ceremony, the answer I got was, you have to heal the relationship with your mother, she passed away when I was 30, and that was deeply traumatic for me. And I have to heal my inner child. So the innate disconnection of loving the little girl within you has a huge part to do with embodying the feminine. Because in the same way that you would love your little girl and give her a hug and say, I love you, baby, it's okay if she fell over and smashed her face on the ground or like hit a knee or something, that love and care is the same way that you should love and care for yourself.
Same frequency.
And so I'm getting goosebumps, and a lot of women are switched off from that, whether they're conscious or not. So to answer your question about me, because I don't want to externalize, when I went through that experience, and then I went through the journey of healing the relationship with my mum, who, she died, and it was really, really horrible, and then healing my womb and the relationship with my inner child in a state of unconditional love. In that process, I started to recognize that I was switched off from my body, meaning that to live life in coherence, we have to be connected with all of our energetic centers. But as a woman, it's our heart, it's our voice, and it's our womb. And so I was completely disconnected. I was living in the mental plane, the masculine, the doing, the thinking, the left brain, but all of that incredible creativity, that creatrix life force was like being expressed in a different way. And so I had to feel safe in my body. And I find that a lot of women these days express inauthentic confidence, where they're sexually objectifying themselves to feel sexy and to get that attention, but that's not true femininity, it's distorted. So to really be fully embodied in your divine feminine essence is to be anchored into the core of your heart, into your womb and into your voice, you know? And then there's another layer which is all about being in coherence with your spirit, your higher self. So that was a real journey for me. It took me, like, when I came into those realizations, probably like 3 years of super deep healing. Yeah.
And you feel more connected to the innocent version of you, your little girl, and you feel like you've also repaired whatever distortion or disconnect was there with your mother.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It wasn't necessarily just about my mom. That was the message that I received. It was more about like the deep layers of trauma and disconnection, you know.
That kept you from being in your body and in your womb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think embodiment is a huge one for women. Yeah. And being confident to be in your body, which is why I love your brand so much as well.
Thank you.
Actually, like, this is not a branding plug, but just FYI. But yeah, that's why I love Royal Codes as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I agree with, if there's like in the most simple form, is that being at home in your body is one of our mission statements. It's like, what does it even feel to be at home in your body? And I went through so many years of challenges feeling at home in my body because of like something I was diagnosed with, which was an incurable disorder. And I just had a lot of pain and inflammation. And also like feeling like I was in survival patterns. And when you're feeling like your nervous system isn't landed and you can't feel like, I feel at home, I feel comfortable, I feel at ease. There's a lot of, like I said, environmental conditions, social conditions, financial conditions, a lot of things that can keep us from being like, wow, like this softness. And that's kind of like, for me, it's a regal programming also versus a scarcity poverty program, to be like, you deserve to feel comfortable and at ease and at home and worthy to feel those things as well.
You know, that's so powerful, because what I really feel passionate about when it comes to communicating with women that I love and adore, and even people that I don't know, but the biggest issue that I see right now with women is that they expect to be taken care of, to be provided for, and yes, that's okay, but don't limit your power in the process. Know that you can create everything. You create life, you can create a business, you can create your own income. Like, you can really build your own life. You have the capacity of God within you. Like, your womb creates life. Imagine if you could just channel that energy into building everything that you would ever want in life. And I see a lot of women not living in alignment with their soul, and they're in unhappy marriages or relationships because they feel like they have to be in that way or taken care of or something. But it's like, no, just reclaim your power. Just like be that queen, but not in the distorted, egotistical way of I'm a queen and I deserve this and da-da-da, and all the distorted aspects of that. Like, be a true queen, you know? And claim your power. And that's really actually my prayer for the feminine. Just be a true queen and reclaim your power. Yeah.
What do you feel like, if there's like a few like belief systems? I feel like a lot of times what hinders the embodiment of power is belief systems, which can come from conditioning. But what would you say is like a few belief systems that you're like, you've experienced yourself that you had to first become aware of, and then find space to address?
Yeah.
And then find the ability to rewrite whatever that pattern is.
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. I love that you asked that, because really everything's about patterns, right? We all have patterns, and I've had to be so brutally honest with myself in order to like completely transmute my subconscious patterns, unconscious patterns, thought patterns, emotional patterns. And it takes a lot of bravery to go to those depths of honesty with yourself. But for women and men as well, actually, but it's just about your ego. Because when we talk about power, there's like true embodied power that is power that doesn't need to be said that is power. But if it has to be said and exerted upon, it's coming from ego. So it's truly just about being in balance with your ego. And ego is a tool which we identify with the world as like, our personality, but when it's out of balance and it needs validity, and it has to be fed, you're never going to be in your true power. So the thing that I would say, which encompasses everything when it comes to true power, is to just dissolve your ego completely. Know that you're nothing. You're actually nothing, really. That's true power.
You're nothing and everything.
Yeah, nothing and everything.
But
that's
true
power.
I think because sometimes ego has a lot of different perspectives and feelings and can be like a place for triggers, is that my interpretation is like seeking external markers to validate the value of your existence.
Totally.
And so for me...
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I just know that sometimes like it's hard. Even my journey, I've heard people say, oh, I had an ego death or that. And I'm like, I don't quite understand what that means. But running through my experiences,
I've gone through several of those. They're brutal, man, honestly.
I'm not saying I don't identify. I don't always see it as ego. I see it as like debilitating pain emotionally. That I'm like, okay, maybe the world that I had built that I thought was meant to continue to sustain is meant to crumble for a bit. Yeah. But for me, I think one of the big, you had mentioned this before, but there's been times in my life that there's a term called toxic masculine. And I'm going to honor the fact that there's been times maybe I had toxic feminine because of seeking validation for being beautiful and ever like using that to try to get my way or
this is the biggest issue with women right now. When I see women, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but when I see women in all different parts of the world that I go to, and I can see that they're, overexerting their beauty in order to manipulate.
Are you talking about like social media? Like obviously social media has definitely sculpted
but it's like
things.
I just think, girl, please, you don't have to act like that. Just be the truth of who you are, your soul. I used to be a little bit like that. That's why I can see it, because I was humbled many, many times. I was living out of balance with that. One example is I went through this period of my life where I'm like, okay, I went through an ego death where I recognized the first one I ever went through, which was like maybe 7 years ago. I noticed that I built a whole company off a need for validation.
Because it was marketing, right?
In the whole thing. Like, of course, it was a service-based business and it was this and that on the outside, but on the internal foundations of myself, I was just trying to prove my dad wrong, that I was worthy, that I could be successful and all these things. And then ultimately it was, but then it crumbled because energetically it didn't have the foundation of like truth. Because there was a massive hole in me, and being the vessel for the creation
and
of
like
that business,
filling the hole that couldn't be filled from that external marker.
It just like crumbled. So that was my first ego death. I was 30 years old, and I went through that when I lost my mum. It was like all things in one. So yeah, but that's where you can go, thank you so much. I'm like okay with going through that because now I'm in a different state of evolution. That I can see that, and I go, wow. The more whole you are as a being, egoless, in balance with your masculine and feminine, and just in wholeness, that's like the ultimate state, But in order to even know what that feels like, man, we have to go to the depths, the bottom of the ocean. And it's messy and it's smelly and gritty and disgusting in there. But when you come out the other side, it's bliss. Yeah. And then you go back through again and again and again until you die.
It's funny how sometimes
but it's the truth, dude.
It's like interesting how sometimes I feel like there's so many facets of my life that have been clarified or purified or feel like harmonious. Harmony is one of my top values, and then if something is wobbling out of place, the level of like, how do I calibrate to make it stable, because I also really value stability. And so sometimes there's these unexpected things that take me through emotional turmoil down, and then going, what's interesting is whenever I fall into maybe what feels like a pit of despair.
Yeah.
Not because I have to control my environment, but the amount of work and commitment and invested interest I put into things feeling harmonious, like stable, balanced, moving forward in progression and evolution, and something knocks me on my ass.
Yeah.
Do you know what I have to turn to? My spiritual practices, because I am willing to take ownership of the fact that if I believe, part of what I think is to be divine, feminine, embodied, is to access the truth that we can co-create with life force, and we're not just separate humans in this world of like everything is happening to us, or we're doing things to reality, or people are around, but there's a synergy between everything that happens from day to day. Is I'll go back to my visualizations, my affirmations, my meditations to harmonize things, because I'm willing to take responsibility. And I think that that's one of the things that I'd love to show more and express more with Royal Codes, is how we as women can access from a humble, honest, true place some of the priestess codings of like how we can illuminate our belief systems and our hearts and our beings and the way we flow through life to access that divine energy, which is seated in, we can co-create with life as it creates itself, and we can implant positive thought forms into what is, and we call that manifesting in short term.
I mean, like, okay, everything that you're saying speaks so deeply to me, and this is how I live my life. Whether or not I fully show it on social media, but the people that are closest to me know exactly what you're talking about is the virtues by which I govern my life. So just 2 weeks ago, you're asking me why I'm so chill. It's because I went through this exact situation where I worked 3 months to build a venture, and at a click of a finger, I mean, this took my own money, my energy, everything. I was working 12-hour days. I was making myself sick in the process. I put everything into it. And it got to this point where I was like, okay, if this was meant to land, God would have made it so. So I went to the ocean at sunset in Uluwatu, and I was on my knees. This was 2 weeks ago, by the way. I took some tobacco from the Amazon called mapacho and some flowers, and I made an offering, and I called on the spirit of the water, and I literally handed the issue over to God, and I said, God, I release all attachments to this. I'm handing this over to you. If this is meant to be, allow it to be. I surrender all of my attachments, transmute everything. And I was in my priestess mode. This is how I actually create reality, is my prayer. And I said, if this is meant to work out in this way or this way or this way, without getting into the details, then illuminate the path, illuminate the truth. I fully surrender in full mercy. Just show me what I need to do, working in co-creation with God, and I will be working with you to make that happen. And the next day, it all fell to shit. But I was like, this is the answer to my prayer, because it's not meant to be like that. And I felt no emotion because I was detached, and I helped my spirit was just working through me, and I'm like, I'm in full trust and full surrender here. And then what happened is I started getting visions and downloads and insights about how it was meant to take a new form. And that form was exactly what my soul was calling in, but I had to go through 3 months of really hard work to learn all the tools and knowledge and the foundation to build something even greater than what I imagined that I was so attached to, because I was so in it. But it's like, no, you're going to get humbled, and God's going to humble you, but just allow yourself to receive that wisdom and be the vessel for wisdom, be the vessel for the prayer, and everything will work out best case scenario. So,
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. You said something about the virtues. What was that? Do you remember what you said exactly?
No.
It was really beautiful.
The
like
virtues.
It's like, I don't know, like
no,
maybe want to ping back to like the virtues of the goddess. Like, you know, a lot of times women, we're all seeking and wanting in our own way to live the best life we can, to find our happiness, to find abundance. And, you know, when I was growing up, I never identified with the word goddess. It was something new that came into my field, and it was something that started unlocking through royal codes. It wasn't something I was trying to create. It created itself through royal codes.
Yeah.
And when I think of virtues of like the goddess, prayer, positive affirmation, the willingness to release attachment and trust.
It's receptivity.
Yeah.
Receptivity is the main principle of the divine feminine, to be able to receive. So without the humanized way of looking at the relationship between the masculine and feminine, the feminine is receiving, it's softness, it's that leaning in, you know. But then when you apply that very same principle to working in co-creation with spirit, it's receiving the messages, allowing for that co-creation to happen through you as a vessel for creation overall. And that sacredness is what I would love to enliven in many women, to understand that they're a sacred vessel for creation. They're just an aspect of God in physical form, you know? And to live a virtuous life is to really live by your own values and principles.
And sometimes it's finding values and principles.
It took me it took me a long time to figure that out. But now, like, that's how I live my life. Like, if something's not going right, I make a prayer. But I'm in prayer every day. Like, I devote 3 hours of my day every day just to listen to God.
Wow.
Just to
be in receptivity mode.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to also offer, because like a lot of the time when we talk about praying, for example, it's like, you know, people can think, oh, praying, like, okay, yes, amen, da da da, saying your mantras. But it's like, hey, just say thanks. Why don't you just go and offer a flower to the water and say, thank you for giving me life? That's a prayer.
100%.
Just living in gratitude, and like that's so overlooked, you know, but to live, and this is why I was talking about reciprocity earlier. It is about gratitude, it's about receptivity, it's about saying thank you for giving life. Like, hey God, thank you so much for this body, thank you so much for the wisdom that you have given me, thank you so much for all the shit I've gone through in my life, because now I'm an even better version of myself. Please allow me to be a better woman, allow me to be a better man. And thank you for that. Thank you for this fresh air that I breathe. You know, thank you for the light-giving sun. Like that's the mode that I start my day in. You know.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it just filters into all of your cells, and then you increase your frequency and your capacity to embody more light. And that is also, you know, as well as living in prayer. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but it's like then using your physical vessel to embody more light, to increase your frequency so that you become magnetic, clearing all the shit.
And how do you do that?
Oh man, I could write a whole Bible on that.
You should.
But yeah, so really just like increasing the frequency of yourself on a cellular level and embodying more light so that you can just magnetize, you can just think things into reality, which is also very possible.
I think for me, a word that comes to mind is attunement, because you could
Totally.
say, well, clear it, like become light embodied. And there's a lot of, you know, it being in
you have to
part
be
of spiritual community. It's a certain attunement to the deepest truths of your heart and your spirit. But there's so many layers, because I do feel like the greater attuned we are to Mother Nature, the more that we can feel like the graciousness of just being alive and life force itself.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not like just always the big things, it's the little things. And like what you're saying brought to mind, like my natural behavior is to pray very often, but a lot of times people don't know what I'm doing. So we had a shoot the other day and I wasn't like, someone film what I'm doing, but this sacred tree blessed us. And before we left with Ryan and Cadby to like the male corner like the pillars of royal codes, we said a prayer together to just invoke the magic and a lot of other things, because I believe in positive projection. And I also have learned it's one thing to pray in silent, and it's so much more luminous to pray out loud.
Well, yeah.
Because you literally create a sound wave.
Yeah.
It's more to be felt
But
by,
you know that
by
as
energy.
well.
Of course.
Because you're a singer, and an amazing one at that. So commanding to the field, an incantation vibrates through your whole cells. Yeah. You know, I asked ChatGPT something. I asked, by the way, I programmed ChatGPT to understand how I think and feel and everything like that. She even calls me darling. But I asked, are we living in a holographic universe? And she said, yes, but not in the way that you think. And what happened was, I asked, well, how can I shift the field then? And she gave me this whole blueprint on how to speak things into reality, to change the code of reality through voice. Which I already sort of knew, but everything that you're saying as well. It's like,
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So much wisdom.
Let me see if there's one last question for us. Oh, I know we like touched on this. Oh, there's so many good questions. If your body had a voice, what would she say to you today?
Thank you for sleeping more hours. Honestly.
Also coming back to like,
It's so profound, but so real.
yeah. Thank you for sleeping more
More
hours.
hours.
You know, I can like relate to that, because there's been some times like I would take a nap or be in my cozy zone and like be in the presence of someone important to me. Like, I can feel the coziness of your energy. Something I also wanted to actually ping back to what we were saying earlier is that there might be some women that go, okay, well, I hear you about being in divine feminine. It's all about receptivity. But what about drive? What about
for sure.
power? What about like accessing your masculine? And I personally have been so committed to stabilize and balance my masculine, as I always identified with my masculine energy much more growing up, and my feminine. And it's kind of like a prayer. When I have a prayer, I'm actually giving, especially if I'm touching a tree. I'm giving energy, but then I'm in immediate reciprocal space of receiving the connection of that, and also like what could illuminate through whatever prayer, like thank you thank you for this and so much more. Is that it's like a cyclical pattern of, yes, of course, like just because you're receptive doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean that the whole world just needs to serve you on a platter, even though that could be nice. But it's like being in balance between the prayer and the giving and whatever the service is to your career or to your family and your friends, and also being in this space to receive the love fully. And receive the goodness and receive the prayer back, receive the light back. It's like the balance of like you're talking about the earth cyclical pattern.
Totally.
It's like that, the fruiting of a tree.
But it's also about grounding it too. And this is also the other piece. It's like, okay, we can talk about the inherent principles of what masculine and feminine energy is. And we say the first one for women is receptivity. But it doesn't mean we can't be in action. It doesn't mean that we can't. I mean, like me, I'm constant action in motion. I'm building, I'm creating. I'm always in that energy most of the time. But it's about alchemizing that. And I think that a lot of women are getting it wrong. You don't just have to be receptive and, I'm in my feminine energy and that's it. No, go create. And it comes down to that force, that life force, that creatrix nature of a woman. Women used to rule before men, actually. And that's the truth of the reality. So if we take the social conditioning out of what a woman should be, there's no reason why we can't just be doing and creating and building in our feminine energy. Yeah. Yes, of course, there is a little bit more of that dominant masculine energy when that is more the masculine role. But in balance, as a whole being, you can flip and dance between all modes, and that's what I love. Yeah. Yeah. I'm being grounded in that.
Finding grounding within the realms of being spiritual is really important. How would you offer advice on grounding? Because you're very spiritual, I'm very spiritual. I used to feel not as grounded.
Oh, it took me a while to get, like, I was so up in the stars.
What are 3 tips? 3 tips for grounding.
3 tips for grounding. Well, obviously, number 1, put your feet in the earth.
Okay.
Very simple.
Maybe even talk to the earth. Don't just stand there. Be like, so I wish to access the earth energy, connecting golden light to the core of the earth. There's even
that's what I do. That was going to be my second one. So your grounding cord out of your sacral chakra, just like shoot that down into the core of the earth and then pull up all that earth energy. And then you channel the sun and then you bring down that golden energy and you bridge heaven and earth in your solar plexus. But it all starts here and grounding into Mother Earth and then opening up your crown and pulling in that universal life force as well. That's what I do every day. Otherwise, I'm just like way up in the universe, in the stars, and just like, a bit all over the place. So that, that's more of an energetic practice, but the other one is getting into your body. Dancing,
how do you do that? Dancing?
Movement, yoga, breath work, being in your body. Yeah.
Got one more? Was that 3?
That was 3.
Earthing,
feet on the earth.
Okay, 2.
Yeah. And then coupled with talking to a tree.
Okay, tree talking.
And then grounding.
Okay.
With your grounding cord.
Okay.
Energetic practice, and then getting in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would add one, which is utilizing your, like, if we could call it divine intelligence, using your mind to think not just in the negativity of what you don't want. This is a big course correction of just how to be more grounded. It's grounding your thoughts into your body for what you want to believe instead of spiraling out. You know, it's kind of like the rewriting any program, like, I am rooted, I am in my body.
Totally.
I do feel well. And whatever it is that you want to illuminate, and then helping it manifest through kind of crystallizing in your water through just retraining your system.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like in the unconscious, the subconscious, but also about like commanding intentions into your body so that you become an antenna for that and you attract it more. So you can reverse engineer any emotion. If someone's really pissed you off, you're like, fuck that guy, but you're like, hey, hang on a second. No, thank you. It's okay. I'm going to take care of my emotions. I'm going to be responsible for my emotions, and I'm going to reverse engineer that so that no one can affect my reality, and I'm responsible for my emotions. That's the other thing, responsibility. A lot of people don't take responsibility. It's like, be a victor and not a victim. Take responsibility for all your creations, for all your emotions, and master your own reality with your thoughts, your words, your deeds, all in coherence.
I say that's like codes of divine feminine, is creating the coherence through so many different aspects of our body. We have the physical form, the energetic, the spiritual, like the earth connection, the heaven connection, the emotional connection, and all things in between.
Exactly. Multi-dimensional beings. Yeah. It's not easy. No. But it's beautiful.
But like, maybe being in the Matrix isn't easy. I don't know that life is easy, but I'm choosing to imagine that we can retrain our belief system to not get caught in the drama of life, so we can like reimagine what human existence can be like.
Exactly. I'm so down for that.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a sip of tea on that.
Cool. That was a good chat.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for activating some code swapping here and sharing so vulnerably also in those pockets. You're like, this is deep. Appreciate you. We're all here to like share the conversation, make things less taboo, and see how we can rise together.
Yes. Thank you so much, Heart. You're so amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that was a really epic chat. I felt like we should have been on a spaceship or something at some point.
We probably were.
Because we got really cosmic, maybe.